Hi, welcome back to another episode of Anyone Can Paint. This week we're going to start a brand new painting. And if you come up to the canvas, let me show you what I got. Through all of the traveling that I do with having classes in 8 counties in Michigan, I get the opportunity to do quite a bit of driving. And some of those trips I get to go on some of the back roads, and I see a lot of farms and barns and those kinds of things. And this is really a combination of some buildings and things that I've seen throughout my travels, of some barns and some outbuildings and sheds and those kinds of things. And it's kind of all kind of put together in one painting. We're going to make this look really, really old, and I'll show you how much fun it is to do that and really how easy it is. So we're going to have some little bit of sky. These are going to be some background trees in there. These are going to be some larger trees. A barn, a little storage shed, another building here. This is all going to be weeds and things. We'll put a fence in here. A little bit of a clearing that goes back here towards those trees, but it's a lot of fun, and you'll really get a sense of seeing how you can not only do buildings, but you can do buildings and really make them look old and distressed and dilapidated and falling apart and everything else. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start in the background as we always do, and that's going to be this sky, and that's going to be this section here. Now let me just tell you a little bit about what I do here. Knowing that the trees are going to come out approximately to there, I like to paint further than what I actually need, because maybe I won't have the trees come there, or maybe you'll be able to see through there. And so I want to extend the sky so you actually see that. So I just don't want to stop here, because then I have to have trees there. Once I get going, maybe the trees will come over here. So if you paint larger than what you think that you need, you leave yourself more options. So that's what I do, and I just use this as a guide. Actually, what I do is just to kind of get things put where I want things to go, so it's kind of balanced. I can get proportions right, sizing correct, but from here out, you can do what you want to do. I'm going to use the large flat bristle brush. Make sure you get it wet before you use it. And I'm going to get some white and a little bit of blue. And we're going to start up here. And again, I'm going to take that past where I have the trees. And see, I put this color on because it's going to be the darkest now, up near the top. Now what I can do is just grab some white, come back in, and I can lightly blend into that and just blend down. And the sky gets a little bit lighter. But you, of course, can put any kind of sky in here that you want to do. Just going to grab a little bit more paint. I'll be right back. There. Now, without cleaning the brush, we're going to start putting in the background trees. So I got the white already still on my palette. I'm going to get some blue and a little bit of green. Now you don't want this color to be very dark, because remember, as things get closer to you, they get progressively darker. So you don't want to start too dark. So I'm just going to load the brush, no particular way. Then I'm going to come up and I'm just holding my brush vertically and I'm just tapping. I just want to get some shapes of some trees in the background. What happens in the middle of the tree is not important at all. Just those outer shapes. And this is all going to be background material. You're not going to really pay much attention to this as the painting develops. I'm going to grab a little bit more white and lighten that up a little bit more. Just kind of work this down a bit. All right, and then I'm not cleaning my brush again, but I'm going to make this color a little bit darker. So in that same pile that I've got, I'm going to add some more blue and some more green. And because you're not adding any more white, this color should be darker than what you've got up there. And then this is just going to be some trees that are in front of that. And this you can that can maybe be a pine tree. Again, it's not that important that you get everything exactly perfect, because again, you're not going to spend a lot of time looking at what's back here. But you know how we always paint in layers, so we got to get this in first. And we're just going to bring that down into this area. I'm going to put a little bit of white with this and just kind of throw this in here and there. All right. Now I'm still not cleaning my brush. Now I'm just going to go into some blue and green, and I'm going to do the underpainting for this area back here. This is going to be an area that's going to be like a little field or part of a pasture that's in the background. So this needs to be darker than what you had there. And this is going to come down to about in this area here. I'm going to get a little bit more green. It didn't seem like there was any in there. And just bring this down in between those two buildings. And just kind of lightly go over that. That doesn't have to be a hard edge. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in those larger trees. Now go ahead and clean out your brush. And the reason we want to clean the brush out is that we don't want any white in this, because these trees are going to be the closer and they're going to be much, much darker. So this is going to go back to the blue and green, and you don't have to overly blend this. And if you just kind of get that color and just kind of tap your brush into it a little bit, just directly tapping it, it'll open your bristles up a little bit, and you want to get that thing loaded with paint. And then we're going to come right up to the canvas, and we're going to start putting these trees in. Now again, you can see where your buildings are, so we're going to kind of paint around those a little bit. We just want to come in and just tap to get some nice, interesting shapes, especially on the outside of your trees. And then as you come in the tree, you can kind of skip around a little bit, allowing some of the underpainting to show through. And I'm just directly going in there and just tapping like this. And then as I go on the outside edge of a branch, maybe, I just kind of lightly just tap, just to get like a little finished part of that branch. And this is going to cover that whole corner. So I'm just going to grab some more paint. This part, you can just kind of throw this in, and as you start working out again, just kind of tap around, allow some of that background to show through. See, this again is some of the importance of bringing your sky over there. So if you had a situation like this where you can see through there, you can actually see the sky as opposed to white canvas. And we're going to bring this right down on top of that building that's right there. Again, this can just be thrown in here. I'm just going to grab more paint. Again, just blue and green, not overly blended. And just bring it down to the, again, top of that building. Don't go through and make it nice and straight, because what's going to happen is you're going to get a ridge of paint that's on there and it never goes away. So just bring that down into the building and just kind of lightly blend out the bottom. Now we're going to jump over to the other side and do the exact same thing. Again, blue and green, kind of load your brush by tapping into it. And then we're going to work this in here. Again, you want to leave some sky holes once in a while. And as you're working your branches out towards the center, kind of light taps will get you some little leafy effects. Again, this is all kind of dark in here. And this is actually going to work down back behind these buildings here. So we're going to just extend this color down. Just reloading the brush, and I'll be right back up. Again, on that edge there, just kind of softly go over that. When we put the underpainting in for the barn, we'll go back over that because remember, we need to do that layering effect where you want these to go kind of in a set way where you've got the things that are furthest away, next layer, next layer, next layer. That helps that illusion of getting some distance in your painting. It's really important. There, we got that done. We can clean out the brush again. Make sure you get that cleaned out real well. How you can do that really easily is just bounce your brush off the bottom of your bowl. And that'll kind of open up the bristles and get all that paint out, especially in a technique like that because you end up with a lot of paint on the inside of your brush. And that's really the best way of getting it out. Alrighty. While we're letting this dry, we're going to go through and we're going to start blocking in the buildings. Now we're going to work on that one and then we'll block in this one. And then we're going to go through and highlight all that. Then we'll start working on those. So this is going to be a combination of some blue and brown. And I'm just still using the the large flat bristle brush. Again, you don't have to overly blend this. And it doesn't have to be one flat color. So what I'm doing now is I'm going through and setting all my edges in. And I like to do my roof first, even though this is going to get covered, but I like to do my roof first so I can make sure my angles are pretty correct and they look like they're, even though this is old, but I want them to look like they're on the same plane here. Because if you don't get your roof line right, then your whole building is going to get thrown off. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, it's old. I want it to be close. Somewhere in the ballpark. And that's pretty close. Okay, now I'm going to come back here. And you want to bring this out enough that you cover over that edge back there again. That helps to push that back. And here, this doesn't matter a lot because it's underpainting. I'm just reloading. I'll be right back. I'm just grabbing more blue and brown. Now, when you're doing this, if you kind of feel like you're going to lose where your roof line is and your edge of your roof, and maybe some of the corner of this, if you want, you can just alter the color that you're using, make it a little bit lighter maybe. That way you can kind of keep in mind where your, so like right here, this happened accidentally, but see this side is darker than your roof, so you could still kind of see where your roof is. Just as long as you feel like you don't lose everything, you can alter that color. Just kind of keep it on the dark side, obviously, but you can alter that a little bit, maybe gray it down or something, just so you can remember where your roof line and everything else is. Again, I'm just reloading with some blue and brown. And see how that color is not even close to what I was using, but it doesn't matter. Just like most of our underpainting, it's going to get covered up for the most part. Now this line here, in fact this corner needs to be, is the corner that's closest to you. So this corner needs to be the longest part of your stroke. And then this goes back, of course it gets lost behind that building there. And then from here that goes up like this. And that's perspective. That's to make it look like it's going away from you and that this corner is out more. So you want that one to be your longest stroke when it comes to corners. And then that one goes back and you just kind of meet that. And we'll have plenty of chance to come through, and you can straighten up edges if you feel you need to, but just kind of roughly throw this in. And while that's setting up, we're going to jump across and hit this other side. And this building actually goes behind this, so we're just going to be blocking in this part for the most part. So again, you want to bring the top of that roof line up into where your tree is, and you want to go past that, because again, maybe that building won't be exactly right there. And then this building pretty much faces us, so you don't have to worry about perspective so much here. This line is basically vertical, and that's the top of the roof line. And what I just painted is actually the roof. Now I got to do the rest of that. And this is going to end up just being ugly. It's going to look a little unorganized, but it's part of the plan. Again, I made it a little bit darker, so not necessarily that part, but there, so you can kind of see where the roof from the rest of the building. And just kind of work this down into the ground area. I'm actually going to bring this roof line out a little bit past that corner of that building. And again, just kind of leave that dark. Remember to soften this edge up, because when you have this building come in, again, if you have a really hard edge, like that's a hard edge there, this is a soft edge. Soft edges are when you blend it away, so when you paint on top of that, you don't have that ridge. And you'll do that a couple times, and then you'll remember that I got to change that. Go ahead and clean out your brush after you got that in. And I think we're going to switch to the medium flat bristle brush, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put some highlights in this little field that goes way back in there. Remember to get it wet first if it's not already. Then just towel dry it off. We're going to go into some just yellow, and you want to get your brush to a chiseled edge. And that's done by just pull some of that out, run your brush through it, turn it over, put your brush back in the paint, pull it through again, and you'll end up with a really nice little sharp edge, and that's called a chiseled edge, and that's what we're going to be using. So where the dark and the light meet, that's where the tree line is, and that's where the ground is. So we're going to start right back there and just work this across, and this paint's just a little bit wet. But as you're doing this, don't cover up all your dark. Remember, the dark is really important. Yeah, this is still a little wet, so I'm going to try this a little bit thicker maybe. And you want to bring this down right about into this area here. So this whole thing is going to have this highlight in there. Again, don't worry about if you paint over those edges, because we're going to go through there with highlights and everything else on those buildings. So if you get any yellow in there, that's going to get covered up, so don't worry about that. And then I'm going to go back and hit it again in some areas. I'm going to have to let this dry because it's still a little wet on the underpainting. We can always come back to that. In fact, I'm going to get a little bit of dark. Maybe we can incorporate some of that in here. There, and we'll clean that out. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have, there's a good sized bush that kind of hangs in here that's around the corner, but you see it kind of over the corner of this building, but it sits back behind it. We're going to have a little bit of that. This is going to be some weeds that are in shadow in here. We're going to have a path that goes from this dirt area into this to where it goes out into the field. But I'm going to do that with an old large flat bristle brush. Now, you're probably not going to wear brushes out as quickly as I do. Maybe you will. But I want to show you what a worn out brush looks like. Now, these brushes are the same, or they were. So one is brand new, that's this one. This one is a little experienced. And you can see that I've really worn those rascals down. Now what you don't want to do is to throw your old brush out. And I'm not saying you need to have 100 of these on hand, but they do have a benefit to them. For one, if you have one that's like this, you can use this to do a lot of things that tend to wear a new brush down. So if you have one like that, you can take a lot of the heat off of this one and keep this one to size for the most part. But this is really good for making bushes and for highlighting leaves, which we will do probably next week. Because what happens is that bristles tend to break off. Let me show you this way. And you can see, because they broke off, see how rounded and thick that one is as opposed to this one? And that fullness makes it really easy to do leaves and bushes and things. So when you have a brush in this condition, don't throw it out because it's really handy to do those things. So you just want to get it wet. And so, of course, if you don't have one worn out, just go ahead and use your large flat bristle brush. So we're going to put that bush in there. This is going to be done with some burnt sienna. And for those who've joined us in the past, you know that we do weeds a couple of different ways. One of the ways we do this, if you come down to the palette, is that we get the brush and we kind of bend it like this. And you can see right there, it gives you that weed effect. And that's what happens at the point of the bend when you do that. It makes really nice grasses, nice weeds, nice bushes. And that's what we're going to be doing today, is using that part of the brush. Now you want to bend this so the end of your bristles at the point of the bend are facing towards you. So that bend is at the top because that's where it creates the weeds. So we're going to go right up to the canvas. And we're going to put this thing right in here. And I actually am turning this vertically, but I'm doing the exact same stroke, and I've used all my paint. Let me reload and I'll be right back. All right. So instead of using it like that, like I showed you, I'm actually doing it vertically. And then you get those, but you still get the same effect. And this is going to come out kind of like that. Let me grab more paint. I'll be right back. And you just want to get those nice little bushy edges. And this is going to come down right about to there. And if you grab just a touch of blue or some dark, you can incorporate that in there. It kind of gives it a little bit more dimension, like there's some shadows and things. When you got that done, you can clean out your brush. Now you'll notice if you have a brush that's half the size in length that I have, it's a little bit harder to get that paint out of there because the bristles are so short. They're kind of really rigid. They don't have as much flexibility to them. All right, in this area in here, this is where we're going to have some grasses and things that are in shadow. So I'm going to use that same brush that I've been using with that bush. Again, you can use a normal brush if you want to. This is going to be blue with a little bit of yellow to it. These are going to be some grasses that are in shadow. So we're going to do that stroke that I just explained to you here, where you bend your brush up like that. And this is where it's going to go in this area here. And we're going to do this whole section. And then we'll put our path in there. I'm going to reload. I'll be right back. Just like that. And you can turn your brush vertically if you want, like we did there, and you can get some areas where the weeds are maybe a little higher, just so they're just not flat across. And just work that down like that. Then you can clean your brush up. All right, let's see if we can put some highlights back there. We're going to use that medium flat bristle brush again. We're going to grab some more yellow and see if this will take this time. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Still a little wet. But as you put this on, remember, don't cover up all your dark. On the ground, that's the thing that helps make it look like there's some low areas and some shadows, and kind of helps give it a little bit of dimension. And this is probably going to be about as far as we get today, although we got quite a bit done. Next week we're going to start working on the barn, putting in some highlights. We'll work on that shed a little bit. We'll kind of get our path in there. We'll have a little bit of a fence. I think we got a pretty good start. Let's clean this rascal out. And thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you tuning in. I hope you try this painting. This one's going to be a lot of fun. So give it a shot. We'll see you next week. Remember, anyone can do this.